This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am joined today by David Babich, who is joining us all the way from Auckland, New Zealand, and we are going to be tasting. This is the Babich Marlborough Pinot Gris 2023. Now, tell me a little bit about this wine, because I think it's going to be quite popular in our market. I opened a bottle of this a little while ago. One was gifted to me, and I think it's going to go down very well here. So tell me a little bit about the wine as I pour myself some.
Well, Jamie, I think Pinot Gris grows particularly well in Marlborough. What the white variety likes is this warm days that develop fruit character and move the ripening process along, and then very cold nights which retain acidity and slow the metabolizing of flavor compounds down. Things metabolize at a faster with higher temperature. So having really quite warm days and really quite cold nights is important for the white varieties, but Pinot Noir also likes this. So Marlborough is really suited to growing Pinot Gris. What we aim for in the product is to build a lot of mouthfeel. So people are aware of Pinot Grigio and Pinot Gris, and they talk to two different styles of the same grape variety. Grigio, and this isn't absolute because there's some Pinot Grigios that are breaking this these days, but in general, Pinot Grigio often is a very light white wine that is easy to drink. You don't have to think about it too much. It's fairly reliable, but it's quite light on flavor and complexity. And Pinot Grigio is a fuller style that is more Alsatian. And so we've always pursued this Pinot Gris style of winemaking and grape growing, where we're looking to open the flavor profile up and get the grapes quite ripe and express the flavor profile of the variety, and then bring that through and assist it on the palate with building palate broadness and palate weight and complexity. And I'll take you through how we do that. Most of it, of course, is on the vine. So without good grapes, you're not going to have a good wine. But it's the picking harvest decision. So we're leaving it quite late in the window. And I think that is reflected by the alcohol being sort of usually above 13, but between 13 and 14. And this vintage sits at 14, which is kind of quite typical for the variety if you're chasing a full palate and a lot of flavor expression. So we harvest these grapes, we bring them in, we crush them, and often we will leave some of these grapes on skin contact, which can be up to 12 hours. And what we're looking to do is extract some of the phenolic content out of the skins, and that will hit the palate here. So you'll feel this grippiness of phenolics. And I think this process is probably best done on Gewürztraminer, where you see they have skin contact, and it makes up for a lack of acid in Gewürz, but it also works really well on Pinot Gris. So you have a bit of skin contact driving that phenolic content up and assisting in the palate to focus the wine. The challenge of Pinot Gris is to make this wine and for the wine to have some focus, because it can be a bit blousy and all over the place. So phenolics help in that. Acidity helps. So we've got a bit of skin contact. We ferment it predominantly in stainless steel, and then we'll retain it in stainless on the yeast lees, and we're stirring those yeast lees back up. And what we're trying to do there is build a bit of complexity on the palate. And if you think of yeast lees as sort of a bready sort of character in essence of that bread yeast style, well, that's going to build a broadness and layering of complexity on the palate that's going to contribute alongside that phenolic part and the natural fruit. So we're getting this layering of characters in the wine. The residual sugar on this wine sits around 5 grams per litre. And it's got a bit of fullness out of the residual sugar, but also at 13 to 14% alcohol, you're getting that fullness on the palate of the alcohol, which is a rounding character in the wine. So low alcohol wines, by contrast, really struggle with mouthfeel because they're taking 5% of sugar of alcohol out, or a third of the alcohol, and then they really struggle with mouthfeel. And they've got to fill that gap with something. But on a product like this, we're looking for a fairly full palate. In terms of the characteristics really coming out of the fruit, pear and citrus,
Yep.
get a bit of stone fruit coming through in the sort of peachy spectrum.
I'm a sucker for textural wines. And one of the things that draws me towards this kind of style of Pinot Gris is that texture. Especially, there's quite a lot going on in the mid palate here as well. You were talking about the phenolics giving you that grip, but the mid palate is quite expansive for a Pinot Gris at this price point. It has to be said.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're aiming for. I think the consumer for this is it's an interesting consumer group because when we look at white wine, we can bookend. Sorry about the sun on my face. It's pretty hard to control the sun. But if you think of white wine drinkers, you're bookended at one end with full Malo oaky Chardonnay, and at the other end you've got products like Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, which are stainless steel, really clean, expressions of vineyard, high acid,
Yeah.
fruit driven. And so those are the two bookends. Pinot Gris sits in between them. It's still aromatically expressive as a varietal if you treat it right, and but it's got that palate latent texture that you'd see more in a Chardonnay than a Sauvignon. So I think you've got your Chardonnay drinkers who want to back off the oaky Malo styles and come backwards off that. And you've got your fresh fruit-driven Sauvignon drinkers who are looking for a change. And we see Pinot Gris as sitting right in the middle, and appealing to both sides. So I think it is a really interesting product if made well for the market, because it really has broad appeal stylistically if
Yeah.
made well.
Now, I'm sure that over the years you have had this at so many winemakers' dinners, events, and the like. What are the most interesting pairings that you have seen with it over the years?
Um, because it's quite full on the palate and textural, you can get into, pairing it with, I've seen it paired, with some, red meats, that sort of thing, which I really didn't expect. That is red wine spectrum. But because it's got that texture, I've seen that but in more of a salad. So you've got some beef cut into a leaf salad, that
Yep.
sort of thing. So you've got the freshness of the salad picking up on the freshness of those fruit characteristics, but it can handle the beef side of it because it's got that texture, weight, and acidity. I think it can go towards dark. Again, it's got fat and dark, and you've got acid cut through, which is quite good. And then I think you've got your normal things, your salmons and other seafood dishes, which you'd also pair into Sauvignon. So I think it's got a bit of broadness with its capability with food.
Great.
I think one of the challenges for Pinot Gris is you can make Pinot Gris really poorly by overcropping it in the vineyard. If you want to overcrop it in the vineyard, it's no problem. You can crop it really heavy and it'll have very light character. And you can overcook it in the winery, trying to do too much to it from a winemaking perspective and overwhelm the fruit. So I think, in a way, if you think of a Riesling, it's hard to understand what you're buying when you're buying a Riesling, unless it's clearly explained on the back label. and you don't know if it's sweet or dry, if it's, just you just get no clues with Riesling. It's potluck. Pinot Gris has a little bit of that. You don't know if you're buying more of a Grigio, very clean, simple style, or a Gris, complex style, and you don't really know what the sugar's doing. If you buy an Alsace Pinot Gris, it could be a sweet white wine. It could be dry as well, and it's true of anywhere else in the world. The style isn't nailed down. If you're buying a Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, you're going to get a dry, crisp, clean white wine. You know what you're getting.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for giving us an insight into the 2023 Babich Marlborough Pinot Gris. I'll be enjoying the rest of that with dinner tonight, I think. Thank you very much.